Liquid I.V is a category disruptor, so no one knew what Liquid I.V was. Anytime I'd say, oh, I'm working for Liquid I.V, people were like, what is that? They thought there were the IV drips that you would get. 14 years ago, no one was carrying around the sticks with the powder in it for hydration solutions. You're usually going to like ready to drink.
Now it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
I'm the longest tenured employee at Liquid I.V. So when I joined Liquid I.V, they're like, we want someone to come in and really build out the customer support function. And they're like, we don't have any processes in place. There's no SOPs. Like, there are no policies. Executive VP of Sales and Marketing was responding to customer tickets at like 2 o'clock in the morning. We just launched a pickle flavor. We did it as April Fool's joke, and they said, we really want this, and we created it, and they bought it. That's really risky for a hydration brand that's known for being number one in taste to do, and that sold out in 36 hours. We are the number one functional hydration brand. We can see that, we can prove that through the data, but like, how do we not get complacent? The market that we disrupted 14 years ago is not the same market it is today. How do we continue to stay competitive and stay disruptive?
Domonique, incredibly excited for today's episode. I mean, this one, I say it every episode, it's a long time coming. This episode is a long time coming. I'm so excited to have you on, and I think that the story and your journey at Liquid I.V in particular is just incredible. I mean, you've been there for 7 years, employee number 12, joined the business when it was like sub 20 mil of revenue, which is just crazy. I mean, it's a household name today. And you would have grown so much with the brand as well, which is an incredible story. I think we can cover so much today. But for those who don't know you, why don't you give a quick introduction?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Domonique Brown. I'm the head of customer experience over at Liquid I.V. Before that, I was over at a place called Hum Nutrition. So used to the Los Angeles health and wellness space. I'm a native of Los Angeles, and so I also live here as well and oversee customer experience, voice of customer, data and analytics, and also AEO and GEO for Liquid I.V.
Nice. Why did you join Liquid I.V in the first place so early on before they'd even proven themselves? Like, what kind of drew you to the brand?
Yeah, I think there are two things. So definitely the first is I have an entrepreneurial spirit. So I love the idea of embracing a new challenge, and there's no playbook. So when I joined Liquid I.V, they're like, we want someone to come in and really build out the customer support function and really drive this as like a customer experience channel. And they're like, we don't have any processes in place. There's no SOPs. Like, there are no policies. We literally, the CEO is like responding at 2 o'clock in the morning. The executive VP of Sales and Marketing was responding to customer tickets at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And so they're like, we need someone to come and standardize this and like really grow along with the journey. And I was excited by that, by basically getting like a blank canvas that I get to paint with. And then also the give back mission. Liquid I.V has always, since its inception, had a portion where they wanted to give back to their community and focus on clean water access and hydration for all. And I thought that was a really exciting mission to be a part of.
Love it. It reminds me of Canva's mission a lot. Canva's is build one of the world's biggest companies, and the step 2 is to do good with it. And you are always drawn to a company like that, right? And when the founders are so adamant about it from the early days, it's just like in the blood of the company. So you basically started to build the foundations of an incredible CX function. Is that what you'd kind of say? It was just like a random, right, just chaotic fires of responding to customers or whatever. And you came in and put process behind it.
Yeah, I think very early days there were 2 major problems. One was that Liquid I.V is a category disruptor, so no one knew what Liquid I.V was. Anytime I'd say, oh, I'm working for Liquid I.V, people were like, what is that? Like, they thought there were the IV drips that you would get. And like,
now it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's everywhere. Even in Bondi in Australia, like I see it. US, it's a household name.
Yes. And no one knew at the time when I joined the company. So it was like, how do we create a legitimate customer experience through product education? I think that was like the first thing that I really went in there. So it was like getting all the sentiment on social media, through our inbox. How are we responding to questions? Do we have FAQs? We didn't have FAQs on our website. It was like very strictly performance driven, getting people to conversion and subscription focused at the time. The D2C channel was very small. And so I think that was the first thing. And then second was like, what identity do we want to form through our customer experience? I look at customer experience as an extension of your marketing. It is a marketing channel, right? So when you're building your business, the last thing you want are people flocking to social media and leaving negative reviews because of a bad experience. So those were like the first 2 missions, really in the beginning as we were like building out the brand.
So today, I mean, you look after so much more. more so on the new customer acquisition side and just growth and retention and all of the above, right? When it comes to marketing, not just CX. But how would you kind of, maybe that's my observation, how would you describe the day-to-day of your role today? What are you looking after?
Yeah, I think I serve as more of a partner to those other functions. So because I sit under the e-com and media function, I'm really tied a lot to what is happening in retention, acquisition, and more so on the voice of customer side. So how are people actually receiving it? And where it plays into like acquisition, like my team sits and talks a lot with the media teams and talking about like what type of things do we want to put in ads from like a disclaimer perspective. It's more of like customer centric focused. Like what are people saying about product education that we're seeing through ads, and like what are some of the messages that we can work with maybe with regulatory or internal teams to kind of tweak to get a little bit more customer centric or meet customers where they are and the questions they ask. From retention, CX is all about retention. So there's the CRM part of it, right? But then there's also the other portion, which my team partners a lot with, and like how can we create more proactive communication channels for our customers, whether that's through our peak seasons when we know there's like certain customer issues that they're going to encounter, and partnering with our retention teams, also building out our subscription programs, loyalty programs. So I think it's really just like taking that voice of the customer and figuring out ways to build that throughout the organization.
Love it. Yeah, so you were with Liquid I.V from $20 million in revenue all the way through to what, $1 billion of revenue?
Yeah.
How would you describe the distinct phases of the business?
Wow. I would say the first phase of the business, it was very entrepreneurial. It was founder-led at the time. So we were.
And are a lot of those people still there, or not really?
No, actually now I'm the longest tenured employee at Liquid I.V. So
wow.
I am the longest team member who's been there. The existing, the founding leadership team, they've all moved on to other things, some of their own ventures and things that they're working on.
Oh, you're literally the longest person there.
I'm the longest tenured person at Liquid I.V. now. Yeah. Which is, it's kind of exciting because like CX has such a unique voice. So I've been able to see the customer transition, right? So like that early phase was like product education and really figuring out like what is our tone and how do we want to influence, because we were disrupting the market. I think that second phase was like growth. So we were really intentional about like who we were partnering with. And so how that translated in the brand voices, we got a little bit, I think this happens conservative, right? Like you're like, we don't want to say the wrong thing because now we have a brand identity that people are tied to. And what's interesting is as we've scaled, now we're at the place where we're like scale quickly, but also innovate quickly. And so there's a lot of encouragement to experiment at this phase, at the $1 billion mark, because we're thinking about how do we stay competitive. The market that we disrupted 14 years ago is not the same market it is today. And so Liquid I.V. is every department is encouraged, whether that's how we're using AI, the tools we're bringing in place, how we're structuring our teams, is how do we continue to stay competitive and stay disruptive in a market that now is established. Everyone knows functional hydration solutions now, but 14 years ago, you were not no one was carrying around the sticks with the powder in it for hydration solutions. You're usually going to like ready to drink in solutions in store. So I think
I feel like the best brands are winning when they are obsessed with experimentation.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of brands get held back because they don't want to be the first. They want the perfect case study. They want someone else to talk to them about it. Whereas honestly, the fastest growing brands, you got Liquid I.V, but you've got, Grüns recently that was acquired as well.
Yes.
And like these are perfect examples of brands that are just obsessed with experimentation.
Yeah.
And it's like equally trying new things, killing things, and just moving quickly. How do you think that, looking at the business today, how do you think that you've been able to manage to foster, I mean, it's obviously you and the leadership team around you, to foster an environment of experimentation?
Yeah, I think it's bringing tools to the surface that maybe we wouldn't have tried before. So like in CX, I always say it's a privilege to be able to oversee my tech stack. And so I'm making decisions on like what type of technology is being brought in, and even proposing solutions that maybe are not directly within my vertical of control, but to the broader e-com team and even to other cross-functional partners. So like I oversee voice of customer, right? There's so many customer touch points and data. We're seeing over 300,000 different tickets come in the inbox in a year, and sometimes that number can go up or down depending on what's going on with AI or seasonality. And so as we're seeing so many tickets, right, like one person analyzing that and giving data across the organization maybe is not the most effective. And also human error, you can miss things. So we brought in like AI tools in place so that we can democratize that. So now like we have product innovation teams that are also using CX tools to gather feedback.
And what tools are you using?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I mean, we partner with a lot for AI, especially in customer experience. Like we're using Flip CX for our phone automation, which has been great for us because if you're canceling your subscription, you don't want to have to wait 10 minutes to get someone on the call. You want it done right away. And so it's been able to help us with that. For our chatbot, we're using Codif AI, which has helped us to automate customer support tickets and also embed like self-service options through chat. And so that's been really great. Yogi has been one of our partners as well for voice of customer, AI data and analytics. And then what's really great too is that we have access to ChatGPT as a company. So they're also encouraging us to go into those tools and build Microsoft Copilot. There's so many AI tools, and then Profound as well, which we're using for AEO and GEO.
Mm-hmm. How are you investing in AEO and GEO today? I mean, you spoke on stage at Grow LA about that today. Hot topic. Everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
Do you think it will require a tool forever, or do you think that it will become a standardized skill set that a marketer needs to learn?
Yeah, I think that there will need to be tools, I think just from the data scraping perspective. But what I think has been, the space is moving so quickly. So we were talking about AOGO 6 months ago, like there were specific tools like Fermat and Evertune and Profound that everyone was talking about. Now I'm looking at review platforms that are literally saying we're doing SEO, AEO, and GEO. And so we're seeing more of those vendors kind of expand their portfolios and also include AEO and GEO. I think that it's a very interesting space because it's so experimental. Like everyone's like, how are they getting their data sources? How are we verifying data? I think the best part of it is a lot like SEO in the early days, which is it's encouraging brands to experiment on the types of content they're creating and figuring out how to reach customers. And then I think just the lens for me being in customer experience, the way I view it is like we're not guessing anymore of like how are customers searching our product. We're actually getting to see the types of questions and the discovery because it's so conversational.
And are you seeing
exciting.
a trend towards shoppers searching on ChatGPT or other LLMs? Or is it still very early and you're just like you're becoming ready as a brand for when the surge happens?
I think it's a bit of both. Like we're seeing people discover Liquid I.V through it. I think this is what we're mostly seeing through AEO and GEO is that people are not necessarily looking up like what are the ingredients in Liquid I.V in ChatGPT, but they are saying like I'm going to Coachella. What are some essentials that I need for Coachella? And then they're discovering if the brand has the right content, then they're showing up in LLMs as a recommendation. And so then there's a discovery of, okay, let me try Liquid I.V. We're still seeing people going through traditional search when they're looking up just Liquid I.V. or looking up a specific thing. So I think it's both, right? There's a readiness of like, how do we prepare for the next stage of search, which is way more conversational than it is today. And then also like, how are we already showing up and then getting closer to that language and then thinking and exploring like the use cases we maybe haven't and building content around that.
Do you think that a merchant's or a brand's website, Liquid I.V in this case's website, has all of a sudden become way more important when it is in AI search? Like, you know, these LLMs need to get context from somewhere.
Yes.
And they're getting context from your website.
Yeah.
And, you know, product pages and product descriptions that were generally, you know, maybe not as much effort was put into those, the copy and the detail and the FAQs, like you said, etc. Do you think that's all of a sudden become more and more and more important today?
I think so. I think the transition that's happening with websites in this moment is that websites are becoming education hubs, and then the selling work is actually in the back end. So I think a lot of brands were focused on making it conversion-focused websites, but now that that's being done through AI, through obviously tools like Instant as well, right? They're figuring out how to understand customer behavior, and that's working in the back end so that the site is pulling that information to be more AEO and GEO focused. So it is a bit of a transition because it was all about the above the fold, how do you catch the attention, grab the attention so they can convert. Now it's about instilling confidence because there's so much competition through the website, and then learning as much as you can about the customer and figuring out how you can bring them into your segmentation so that you can sell and convert later.
What are your thoughts on retention today? Obviously, it's great to work with Liquid I.V, Instant. We've been working together for a while now. Thanks for giving us a shot so early days. There's very few people that take a stab at something when things are early. You obviously did it with Liquid I.V. You've done it with Instant. It's like that entrepreneurial spirit is in your blood, like you said. How are you thinking about retention today? I think that there's so much talk around, obviously AI, whatever. But there's actually so much talk around just how expensive it is to acquire a new customer versus trying to keep an existing. Most brands only make profit on their second purchase onwards. You've been doing things forever like subscription-based pricing and acquiring a subscription kind of based customer. How are you thinking about retention today, particularly in an AI world, and what are you kind of doing with Instant?
Yeah, I think for us, retention has always been a big pillar of Liquid I.V. But as we were scaling, just like most brands, you focus a lot on acquisition. And then your thought process and retention is like, how do we capture and grab them so they'll stay and they'll want to purchase, and how do we provide value? I think the conversation is more about how our brand's providing value and how that conversation is shifting. And so we have a lot of information because of our D2C site has been around now for so long that we are understanding, like, when do people repurchase Liquid I.V.? How actually are they using the product? So we have subscription, but we also have this tier of loyalty. And these are also frequent repurchasers on our website. And so I think for us, as we're thinking about retention, we're thinking about, like, how do we have the right cohorts? Are we studying the right behavior patterns of our customers? And customers can be really tricky, especially with a brand like Liquid I.V., where there's a seasonality component to it. So we're coming on our peak season because it's hot, and then people want to buy hydration solutions. The winter, maybe not as much. So I think for us, we're trying to get in a little bit more in our CRM of, like, how are we messaging to our customers? How are we targeting them at the right times? And we've done some really interesting work around heat waves and seeing, like, how do we specifically talk? Like, we know there's heat waves within certain parts of the country. Like, how do we talk to and target those customers and reach out to them, get them to repurchase, to show up? And then we've also explored even options within still building it out. I think we're still experimenting a lot, but even like within our subscription and within our loyalty, like, how much can we customize this experience for the customers and how they specifically shop?
How do you think the world of personalization will change in the world of AI? I mean, it's no longer just the first name of a shopper or the first and last name that is personalization, right? And that's the first example everyone goes to when they talk about personalization. How do you think personalization will change in today's world?
Yeah, I think personalization in the past focused a lot on building these cohorts based off of, like, these customer personas. I think that was like a very traditional marketing tactic of, like, this is who's buying it and they fit into these, like, 3 buckets. I think what we're seeing now is there's a lot more diversification in the customer and their actual behavior. Like, how many times are they visiting the site? What's their actual behavior on the PDP? Like, where are they clicking to? And so, like, I had a really interesting conversation earlier of, like, who actually uses the shop all page, because so many brands put a lot of focus on, like, the shop all page and there's certain tags on products, and, like, this is a bestseller, or this is TikTok famous, or things like that. And how does that show up? How are customers actually engaging with the website? And can we, like, track that behavior to make decisions for them without us actually having to, like, build out these customer cohorts? So I think personalization is going to get even better because our AI tools in place, like Instant, that are doing the work in the back end. I think instead of CRM specialists and retention leads kind of sitting down and saying, like, what cohorts do we think and, like, what kind of data can we pull? I think there's a lot of data. There's a lot of cohort analysis that can go in place. I think with AI tools, we're able to do it a lot faster. So it's not people sitting there having to create customer personas and guess and then test and figure it out. We're able to actually test in real time, see what works, move faster, and so we can convert and can learn about our customers a lot faster too.
It's yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think the most exciting thing is it's just never been possible before for a marketer to sit down and send 100,000 emails a day to every shopper. It's just like, it's not the fact that brands don't want personalization, it's just they simply can't do it. Whereas today you can send a different email to every shopper based on what they viewed, how loyal they are. Don't give them a discount if they've purchased before. Give them a heavy discount if they haven't purchased, but they've been looking at us for a long time. All of the above. Every single shopper is getting a different piece of marketing material. And I think the next phase will be like agentic campaigns where every shopper, you're not just sending 30 campaigns in a month, a campaign a day or whatever. You're all of a sudden sending 100, 200, 300 campaigns to different types of shoppers in just a single day. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. Every marketer's spoken about personalization for so long.
Yes.
But now you can actually bring the data alive. Do you think email, SMS, etc. on the retention front will remain important in today's world? Like, do you think that the existing customer will remain important?
Absolutely. I think email and SMS will continue to. I think SMS, there's a lot of opportunity there that's sitting on the table that brands haven't quite figured out yet. I think there's a lot of
What do you think they haven't figured out?
I think SMS I think in general, it's hard to figure out where to always reach your customers. So I think email, like you send email campaigns in the end. This is where, speaking to something you were saying that I think is great about like those personalized campaigns, right? It's like the fatigue that customers experience when there's not a lot of personalization that's taking place, but brands are, of course, doing what they have to do, right? Because they want to convert and they want to make sales. But when you have more personalization, there's less fatigue. And I think SMS is a really hard channel because you don't have the visual components. A lot of brands are still struggling, like, how do we create that brand identity and voice and show up? I know for myself, like when I get SMS, I usually just unsubscribe.
Yeah.
And so I think it's I don't know if I've seen any cases yet where I think people are doing it really well. You see lifts in the beginning, but I don't think it's sustainable. And I think it's more so just about how do we capture the customer's attention, and the more personalized we can get. And then even adding some visual components, I think, can make a difference besides just like static discounts that we're currently seeing being sent now. So I think it really is just more experimentation, harder to do in SMS. And that's where I think AI tools are going to fill in the gap.
I want to go back to some of your thoughts before around CX and your time, spending so much time on the customer voice front at Liquid I.V. You mentioned that the customer success, customer experience team should be a growth driver for the business. They should be attached to marketing or, looking at the signals from marketing and vice versa. A lot of companies would see it just as a support function, just chuck it over there, answer the tickets that are coming in, and don't distract the business. Whereas you take a very different approach to it. How have you done that? How have you actually gone about, absorbing the CX team into the business and treating it as seriously as it should be treated at Liquid I.V?
Without making it boring, I think a lot of it is figuring out the right language internally. I think CX sometimes can operate within a bubble within the CX functional leaders, the team members, and it's just because you're seeing all of the problems with a magnifying glass. And so if you can take a step back as a CX leader and kind of look at the data and understanding how it impacts the total business, and then talking about like what are the opportunities to win customers, keep customers longer, then it gives you language to have as you're talking with cross-functional teams. I don't expect for my marketing team to understand when I say 50 people complained about this, what that means.
Yeah.
And it's not because they're not good at their jobs. It's just more so they don't live within that world. And then they're looking at total sales, right? So if we sold 100,000 of something and we saw 50 complaints, like how much of that is a major issue? Not that they don't care, but we always understand that there's some level of error that can happen, right? So it's like, how much of this is actually needs to be brought to the leadership's attention versus how much of this can be managed, and that's why CX functions exist. And so I think it's understanding the language. When I first joined Liquid I.V, I sat down with every single department leader and I said, what are the priorities and the things that are important to you? And so that helped me develop the language. And then I think very boring things, but like reporting as well, right? The same metrics. I think when a lot of times CX leaders kind of disappear, do the work, and then they show up when there's a problem. And then they don't have language for like, what are the things that are important to CX? So like my team internally knows when I report on NPS what that means, when I report on CSAT what that means. We have a metric in ecom of like measurement for campaign success based on CX qualitative feedback. And so it's like a total percentage of the inbox, and we report on that. So if a certain issue has increased tickets by a certain amount, then that's where we have conversations and we build out processes to improve for the next promotion. And so I think there's a level of, again, realizing that CX is like has a magnifying glass because they're seeing every single individual ticket, call, chat, social media comment that comes in, and then understanding how to prioritize those problems, and then also how to work cross-functionally. So I think now, and this is the privilege of being somewhere for 7 years also, that they've gotten used to the voice and the way you talk about it in the reports that we send out and the conversations we have, and there's trust within the CX function. But there's a lot of noise. Customers always have a lot of feedback, and that feedback is very valuable. Also, you can implement everything because sometimes the feedback will contradict itself. And so it's like, how do you prioritize what's important? That's a lot of times volume, context, impact to business, and then also brand identity. I think that's a part that gets missed, but is this how we want to show up with our customers? Do we want people to see us this way? And that also goes a long way in influencing decisions across as well. Just like I'll give an example with the pandemic, when that happened, right? Like we were pushing, the CX team was really pushing for some changes, and we were trying to grow and scale, and also we're being acquired by Unilever at the same time. And you'd imagine we were being acquired. They're like, we don't want to change much because we're focused on other areas of the business. But I had a very real conversation with the founding leadership team at the time that we're a brand that's growing and scaling. Like, what message do we want to send to people about how we see our customers? It's not that they didn't care. It's more of just giving them another lens and another way to look at it.
Right. So I want to wrap on a couple of these notes. Like, you've been with the business. It's at over $1 billion of revenue today. Acquisition by Unilever. Without giving away too many kind of specifics in where the business is focused now, what do you think are the most important things to get right over the next 12 or 24 months to continue that hypergrowth?
Yeah, I think it's continuing to figure out the ways we can meet our customers. So we've talked about the product a very specific way, and that as our core, right? Daily hydration, functional hydration, but also people are using hydration in ways that, in our Liquid I.V product, in ways that we have not expected. And it's like, how can we meet them with the types of content we create through AEO, GEO, so that we are more discoverable and people can find our brand. We always want to reach more people, get in more households, continue to grow our awareness of our product, and then reach and expand into more markets. We're an international product now, which we're really excited about, but we're always thinking about how we can continue to reach more people. So I think that's a huge part of it, right? It's like, let's not get involved in these scripts and how we talk about the product, but like, are there other ways that we can expand that maybe we don't even recognize, but like customers are there and they're telling us this is how they see us and see our product.
Don't forget the customer.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's definitely paying attention to the customer and being focused on like, what are the usage occasions? What are the opportunities to meet them where they are? And I think not losing the entrepreneurial edge that made Liquid I.V so successful. There's been a challenge, I think, for all of us, which is great, which is we are the number one functional hydration brand. We can see that. We can prove that through the data. But like, how do we not get complacent? And so that is experimentation. And I'm very lucky that the leadership team...
Because how big is the team now?
We're about... I don't want to get this wrong. I think it's 230 employees now.
Yeah, it's a lot, right?
Yeah, it's grown a lot more. So it's like, how do we continue to make that the heartbeat of the organization? Because that's where we excel. Like, we just launched a pickle flavor and that sold out in 36 hours, right? But that's really risky for a hydration brand that's known for being number one in taste to do. And people loved it. But we met our customers because they were the ones who told us they wanted a pickle flavor, and we gave it to them. We did it as April Fool's joke, and they said, we really want this, and we created it, and they bought it. And so it's like making those big bets, being willing to experiment, learning, hearing our customers, keeping them at the pulse of the organization.
Let's end on this note. What do you think are the most overhyped things in AI at the moment?
Oh my goodness. I don't know if there's just one, I don't know if there's anything I would say. I think when everyone says, oh, we're going to eliminate these roles completely because AI is in place, I think that's always overrated. I think CX was the number one place. They were saying, we won't need teams. We'll just have AI bots handling everything. And I'm like, someone has to train it. Someone has to QA it. Someone has to build processes and feed it into it so it has information to read out. And then you have to continuously improve those processes. It's like any other function, right? Like, you put out a marketing campaign, you might release 10 ads at one time. You see some that are not performing, you turn those ads off, and then you put more spend towards the ones that are performing. You're doing the exact same thing in CX, right? Like, you're putting out flows and workflows and you're seeing what's going on. So I think anytime, I think I saw an article that said the CMO role is dead, and I was like, it is absolutely not dead.
Love it. So many nuggets in here. I think the it's so rare to get the opportunity, whether by luck or coincidence or hard work, all of the above, really, to be a part of such an insane growth story. I think the most exciting thing would have been, you said at the start that when you first started working at Liquid I.V, not many people knew what Liquid I.V was. Now you can turn up to any friend or event, etc., and everyone knows what Liquid I.V is, and being a part of that story is just an incredible thing to happen in your career. Domonique, Liquid IV, thanks so much for coming on, and thanks for making it happen.
Thank you for having me.